Discover the incredible journey of two coffee lovers, how one cup changed their lives forever. On a frigid morning in a small Midwestern town, warmth brewed not only in coffee mugs but in the hearts of two strangers waiting for their lives to change. Sarah, a single mother with battle-worn hands and dreams too big for her circumstances, stood behind the counter of the local diner, her eyes lingering on Jake's laugh as he played with his Matchbox cars. Little did she know that today would intertwine her fate with Tom, a retired veteran wrestling with the weight of rejection. Tom shuffled into the diner, the bell above the door ringing an unwelcome alert to his weary heart. Years of service faded into forgotten memories. Now, he was battling for his place in a world that felt indifferent to his sacrifices. As he settled into a booth, Sarah noticed him and, summoning her courage, slid a steaming cup of coffee toward him. The aroma wafted to his senses, pulling him back from the edge of despair, if only for a moment. "Thanks," he said gruffly, but the corners of his mouth hinted at a smile. As they exchanged stories, vulnerability painted the air. Sarah shared her dream of opening her own cafe, a space threaded with warmth where laughter echoed off the walls. Tom, in turn, revealed the bitter taste of rejection as he searched for work, each interview a jab at his worth. The diner buzzed around them, filled with life, but their conversation enveloped them in a cocoon of sincerity. They found solace in shared fears, two strangers daring to dream amidst the clatter of plates and friendly chatter. "What if," Sarah pondered aloud, "we turned this diner into my cafe? A gathering spot for the community?" Before they could inhale that possibility, word broke: an enormous chain cafe planned to invade their town, threatening the local businesses they cherished. Panic swept through the diner like a summer storm, igniting a fierce resolve in Sarah and Tom. They couldn't let this happen. "Let us rally everyone," Tom urged, hope igniting in his chest as he connected with her passion. "We'll host a community event, celebrate our local culture." Excitement electrified their conversation, infusing life back into the diner's familiar walls. Laughter and hope filled the space, entwined with the clinking of silverware. Yet, not all were as eager. Fear blanketed some, stifling their voices against the corporate tide. But others, inspired by Sarah and Tom's determination, joined their cause, their hearts echoing the dream of independence. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." As the event day drew near, Sarah and Tom felt a weight of urgency settle around their shoulders. The diner buzzed with preparation, whispers of excitement mingled with skepticism. Were they really up for this challenge? But just as fear began to cloud the excitement, the diner owner approached them with a proposition that shimmered like hope: transform the diner into a cafe of their own. Was it too good to be true? As their dreams collided with reality, Sarah and Tom faced backlash from the looming corporate presence. Would they have the strength to embrace this gift, or would their fear cast shadows over their hopes? One cup of coffee had ignited their spirits. Now, could they stand against the storm brewing on the horizon? The warmth of that possible cafe became their beacon as the future hung precariously in the balance, and curiosity bubbled over. Would love and community rise from the ashes of fear, or would their dreams slip away? Morning lights spilled into the diner, brightening the patrons as they gathered for breakfast. The air smelled of bacon and coffee, but the tension was palpable. Sarah wiped down the counter, heart racing. She could feel the anticipation thrumming in her veins. Just hours stood between them and the start of the community event. Every moment counted, the success of their dream hung in the balance. Tom was at a table, jotting down notes on a napkin. He glanced up, his eyes twinkling with determination. "It's going to be great, Sarah. The people will show up. They have to." "Right," she replied, her voice tinged with doubt. "But what if no one comes? What if they don't believe in us?" "We have to believe in ourselves first," Tom countered, the strength in his words bolstering her hope. Look at what we've already started here. We reached out, we initiated this conversation. He waved his arms, incorporating the diner's bustling energy. Remember that moment when you slid that cup of coffee over to me? That was the spark. Sarah nodded, a soft smile pulling at her lips. That moment had changed everything. As she prepared for the day, Tom's words lingered. They had ignited a fire in her spirit, burning away the layers of doubt that coated her dreams. As the clock ticked down to event time, the diner filled with local families and friends. Laughter bounced off the walls, weaving a tapestry of warmth. But underneath it all was the still there fear of the corporate giant looming outside. The news of the chain cafe had sparked anger and determination among many, but a thread of anxiety remained. What if this event couldn't unite them? When the crowd grew thick, Sarah stepped up to the makeshift stage. Her hands trembled slightly, but she drew in a deep breath, grounding herself. "Thank you all for coming," she began. "Today, we celebrate our community and everything that makes it special. We have local food, music, and stories to share. This is not just about a cafe, it's about coming together and supporting one another." A wave of applause swelled in response, and her heart raced. This was it. The moment she had envisioned was coming to fruition right before her eyes. Tom joined her, and together they invited local performers to the stage. Music floated through the diner, a mixture of folk and rock that resonated with the crowd. People dug into homemade pies and fresh coffee as stories of their lives bubbled to the surface. With each moment, the atmosphere transformed, turning the initial fears into a current of joy and unity. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, the event reached its pinnacle. Community members shared their experiences, and Sarah saw tears in people's eyes, a testimony to their shared resilience. It was as if a wall had crumbled, and in that open space, hope rushed in. But amidst the jubilation, a figure strode through the diner's entrance. Dressed sharply in a suit, the owner of the chain cafe surveyed the scene with hawkish disdain. When their eyes met, Sarah's stomach twisted. "Sarah," Tom whispered, catching her glance. Fear and defiance mixed in his voice, urging her to stay strong. She took a breath, but a swell of uncertainty coursed through her veins. It wasn't just a test of their idea, it was a test of what their community was willing to fight for. Would they rise together to defend their dreams? Or would this new threat overshadow everything they had built in this one perfect day? The stakes had never been higher. The music faded into the background, tension rising like steam from an overfilled kettle. All eyes shifted to the newcomer. What could he possibly want? Would he bring despair, or was this the moment that would define their future? In that moment, the unknown loomed heavy, and for Sarah, the cafe dream felt both closer and more elusive than ever. The newcomer stood there, an imposing figure among the warmth and familiarity of the diner. He scanned the room, taking in the laughter, the joy, and the undeniable bond that had formed among the patrons. But his gaze zeroed in on Sarah, almost as if she were a challenge to be conquered. "Sarah," he said, his voice smooth but edged with steel. "Is this really how you want to spend your time? Playing at community leader?" A ripple of tension cascaded through the crowd. Sarah felt the heat rise in her cheeks as whispers passed like electric currents among the people. Her heart pounded against her ribcage, but she forced herself to hold his gaze. "We're not playing," she replied, finding her voice steady despite the fear curling in her stomach. "This is what our community needs." "Are you sure?" "Because I can assure you, the people out there," he gestured toward the street, "don't care about homemade pies or heartfelt anecdotes. They want convenience. They want corporate coffee. They want what I offer." Tom stepped forward, fists clenched, his face aflame with indignation. "You don't get to dictate what this community values. We're not just some numbers on a balance sheet." The man chuckled, a dismissive sound that cut through the air. "Numbers are exactly what make a business thrive. You're dreaming if you think this quaint little event can compete with what I have to offer. Your organic coffee and artisanal cakes 1T stand a chance against my marketing." The words hung heavily, shrinking the space around them. Sarah looked around, reading the expressions of those gathered. Some brows were furrowed in concern, but many others were lit with resolve, their eyes turning toward her as if waiting for her next move. "Your marketing doesn't understand us," Sarah said, her voice gaining strength with each syllable. "We're more than a profit margin. We're families and stories. We're a community built on resilience, and we refuse to go quietly." The diner erupted in murmured agreement, the spirit of determination echoing through the crowd. People patted each other on the back, nodding in affirmation of Sarah's words. The man's smile faltered slightly. "You really think this will change anything?" he asked, a hint of uncertainty slipping through his polished facade. "Yes, we do." A voice rang out from the back, a familiar face among the patrons. It was Mrs. Becker, the neighborhood grandmother who had baked for every event. "We may not have your resources, but we have each other." This was the spark that ignited a chain reaction. More voices joined in, sharing their stories, their concerns, their dreams for what the community could become. Sarah felt a wave of courage wash over her. With every story shared, the bonds among the community grown stronger. But through it all, the man remained frozen, the confidence he entered with slipping away like sand through fingers. "Fine," he said finally, his voice tinged with exasperation. "But don't say I didn't warn you." He turned sharply, leaving the diner with a promise of conflict still hanging heavy in the air. As the doors swung shut behind him, the tension seemed to dissolve, replaced by a palpable energy that washed over the room. Sarah's heart raced, knowing the battle was just beginning. Tom squeezed her hand, pride shining in his eyes. "You did it, Sarah. You stood your ground." She smiled back, but a knot of worry twisted in her stomach. What happens now? He wanted to just go away. The weight of the moment settled around them, but within that weight was also a glimmer of hope, a shared understanding that they were in this together. As they surveyed the crowd, Sarah realized this was only the beginning of their journey. They had made their stand, but she could feel the pulse of something more demanding their attention. What if they could take this event and turn it into something bigger? A movement that echoed beyond the diner, reaching every corner of their town? A buzz of excitement filled the room, hands clapped and hugs shared, but as she watched her community rally together, a new determination sparked within her. They would fight together, not just for the cafe, but for their very identity. But as the celebrations continued, an unsettling thought pricked at her mind. What would the corporate giant's next move be? The day was far from over, and as the gathering swelled, the future felt as uncertain as ever. Would they truly stand united, or would the threat divide them? In that moment, the true test of their resolve lay ahead, casting a shadow that loomed just outside of their newfound hope. The excitement in the diner was palpable, but it felt fragile, like a small flame struggling to stay lit against the wind. Sarah looked around at the bright faces watching her, and though she felt a rush of adrenaline, an undercurrent of worry tugged at her heart. "What's next?" she asked, her voice cutting through the jubilance. "How do we keep this momentum going?" Tom stepped up again, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "We need to plan something bigger than just coffee. A festival, maybe? Something that showcases what makes our community unique." The crowd erupted with cheers, the sound echoing off the diner's walls. It seemed everyone was eager to contribute, and the air filled with ideas: local musicians, art displays, contests, even cooking competitions. Each idea was a thread, weaving them closer together, turning the wavering flame into a bonfire of hope. Sarah felt herself smile widely, caught up in the enthusiasm. "Yes. Let us put together a planning committee. We'll meet every week, gather input from everyone, we can spread the word on social media, in the town newsletter." The chatter grew louder, feisty spirits ready to breathe life into plans. People nodded in agreement, some even jumping up to grab paper and pens. Sarah felt a rhythm building, the kind that came from shared dreams, like a heartbeat echoing through the diner. But then, she noticed Tom's brow furrow in thought. He stepped forward again, the excitement tempered by a hint of caution. "I love where this is heading, but what if he tries to sabotage us? What if he's got resources we can't compete against? A silence fell over the room, and Sarah's heart sank. It was a valid concern. The man had money, influence, and connections that could easily undermine her community's efforts. What if her optimism was simply ignorance? We can't let that fear hold us back, Sarah said slowly, her voice steadier than she felt. If we stay united, if we stick to our values, people will choose us. They'll see what we stand for. But what if they don't? A voice called from the back, laced with worry. It was David, a local business owner, usually bubbly and upbeat. What if our identities get overpowered by his flashy advertisements and discounts? A wave of tension swept through the diner again, and Sarah felt her heart race. Doubt was creeping in, threatening to splinter their newfound strength. Just as she was about to respond, Mrs. Becker raised her hand. At her age, she was a grandmother figure to many, wise and often the voice of reason. Every challenge we face is a story waiting to be told, my dear friends, she said, her voice warm yet firm. Our history is filled with struggles. We've overcome so much together already. Remember when we nearly lost the library? We rallied and fought back. This is just another chapter. The spirits in the room lifted, and Sarah felt her chest swell with determination. Exactly. We have a story. Let us share it. We'll weave our past and our hopes for the future into everything we do. Inspired murmurs filled the diner again, the energy reigniting like a phoenix. People began to talk about storytelling, how they could share testimonials, and how to incorporate their journeys into the event. But as the excitement built, a haunting thought nagged at Sarah: was it really going to be enough? The man was out there, regrouping, and she couldn't shake the feeling that they had only seen the first wave of what he was capable of. Tom caught her eye, a flash of understanding passing between them. They both knew that this was about to get much harder. Yet, despite the looming dread, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of exhilaration in their vulnerability. What if this is what it takes? She thought, just as her heart surged with a mix of fear and hope. They had a collective vision, a community spirit, and for now, that was more powerful than any corporate machine. But even with that resolve, a question loomed overhead: how far would their courage take them when the battle truly began? The next week unfolded like a whirlwind, as the diner transformed into a hub of creativity. Tables overflowed with makeshift decorations and brainstorming boards plastered with colorful ideas. Sarah stood at the front, her spirit buoyed by the collective energy. Each meeting brought new faces, new ideas, and a palpable commitment that buoyed her heart. Okay, everyone, she said, her voice filled with excitement. Let us dive into the next stage. We need a name for our festival. Coffee, community, and connections, shouted Tom, raising his coffee mug high, a goofy grin plastered on his face. Laughter erupted, and Sarah couldn't help but chuckle at his enthusiasm. The thought ignited conversations, ideas igniting like fireworks. As the names rolled in, Sarah paused, her eyes drifting towards the diner's windows. Outside, she spotted a shiny black car pulling into the parking lot. A familiar figure stepped out, a man in a sharp suit, slicked back hair glinting under the sun. Her stomach churned. It was Frank Harris, the corporate mogul intent on taking over their main street. Guys, hold that thought, Sarah said, concern weaving into her tone. I think we might have company. The chatter quieted, head swiveling towards the window. Frank walked through the diner doors, an air of confidence surrounding him. He was precisely the kind of man whose very presence made the room feel smaller. Afternoon, everyone, he called, offering a polite smile. I couldn't help but notice the buzz from outside. Thought I'd introduce myself. The atmosphere shifted, tension hanging heavy in the air. Sarah squared her shoulders, preparing for what she sensed was coming. I hear you're planning a festival. Sounds splendid. But, let us be realistic, I think you'll find it hard to compete with my upcoming project. His tone carried a veiled challenge that flickered like an unwelcoming flame in the air. You know how people love flashy things. Discounts, free coffee samples. It's hard to resist, right? A murmur of unease rippled through the crowd, and Sarah felt her heart race. Frank was pulling out the big guns, and she could almost see the waver in some of her supporters' confidence. Frank, we're not just about the discounts. We're about connection, community, traditions. Sarah's voice was firm as she stepped forward, her heart pounding. People love to feel they belong, to be a part of something real. Real? Those are pretty words, my dear, he replied smoothly, a disarming smile still in place, but people will ultimately go where they get the most value. You can't fight marketing. I don't want to fight, she countered, digging deep to hold her ground. Our community is more than just a market. It's memories, stories, and shared experiences. Stories matter. Frank's smile faltered, and for an instant, a flicker of irritation crossed his face. Then I suggest you share those stories fast. Time is not on your side. With that, he turned and walked out, leaving an air of uncertainty hanging in the diner. The silence that followed was loud and deafening. Eyes turned towards Sarah, a variety of emotions reflecting in their faces: fear, doubt, but also determination. Did you see the way he walked in here? David whispered, his voice trembling. He thinks he can just waltz in and take over everything we've built. You know what? Sarah said, a newfound fire igniting in her belly. Let us take that as a challenge. If he thinks our stories don't matter, let us show him how wrong he is. We have each other. We've overcome so much before, and we can do this. The diners exchanged glances, and slowly, one by one, they nodded an unspoken agreement, pushing them closer together. The fear began to melt away, replaced by a collective will to stand firm. But as they resumed planning amidst bursts of laughter and ideas, Sarah couldn't shake the chilling knot in her stomach. She returned to the window, the bright sun now feeling harsh against her skin. Frank was back in his car, a smirk playing on his lips, the community she loved feeling like it hung in the balance. How could they face such a powerful opponent? What could they do that would truly resonate? Sarah found herself wondering if they could turn the tide against a corporate juggernaut with enough heart and courage. As the laughter echoed in the diner, one question lingered in the air: what was the risk of reaching for their dreams when they felt so uncertain? The following day, the sun streamed through the diner's windows, brightening the worn tables where Sarah and her friends gathered again. It was a heartening sight, the kind of community spirit that could drown out even the most calculated corporate hustle. She smiled at the faces around her, each person representing a unique chapter of their story. All right, folks. Today we strategize, Sarah announced, the corners of her mouth curling into a grin. We need to collect our stories. Every single one matters. Let us find a way to make the festival not just a celebration but a declaration of who we are. Tom, still vibrating with energy, was quick to chime in. What if we set up booths for everyone to share their experiences? The best memories, the funniest moments, like a live storytelling showcase? Love it. David said, his eyes glinting with excitement. And we could have a community coffee tasting contest. Everyone gets to bring their own blend. Local favorites only. The ideas flowed like coffee from the pots. Sarah watched, her heart swelling with pride. The tension from the previous day was now a distant memory, replaced by enthusiastic chatter as people dove deep into planning. Yet somewhere in the back of her mind, Frank's words lingered like the bitter aftertaste of a poorly brewed cup. You can't fight marketing. It gnawed at her, feeding her determination with each passing moment. As the meeting wrapped up, Sarah felt a tap on her shoulder. Turning, she was greeted by Miss June, the elderly woman who ran the flower shop down the street. Sarah, darling, she said, her voice warm like freshly baked bread. I've been thinking about what you said. We have to show Frank that community is what people crave the most. I'd love to help with the decorations. Flowers always bring a festival to life. Miss June, that's amazing. We'd love your floral magic, Sarah beamed, envisioning the burst of colors that would light up their festival. Their afternoon was filled with busy planning, laughter echoing off the diner's walls. Sarah saw the fear that had gripped her community slowly fade. With each idea, each collaborative effort, they built a tapestry of hope and resilience, a stark contrast to the looming shadow of Frank's sleek corporate ambitions. As night fell, however, reality sank in once more. Sarah sat alone at a corner booth with a cup of coffee that had gone cold. She stared absent-mindedly at the steam curling from it, her thoughts racing. Could they truly make this festival resonate as deeply as she dreamed? Or was it all just wishful thinking against an encroaching tide? That night, as she walked home beneath a canopy of stars, she caught a glimpse of the black car parked outside Frank's office. A chill ran through her, and apprehension gripped her heart. What was he plotting? Was he really going to unleash a strategy to squash their ambitions? At that moment, a resolve solidified within her. They weren't just fighting for a festival, they were fighting for their identities. And they wouldn't go quietly. With each step, she imagined her community's stories woven into the festival, painting a picture far more vibrant than any corporate marketing could ever muster. But a question lingered in her mind, one that echoed like a silent challenge: would their passion be enough to overcome the machine that threatened to redefine their town? As she stepped inside her home, the doubt brewed once more. Was it possible that one cup of coffee could really bring about the change they all desperately wanted? Tomorrow, she would have to dig deeper and perhaps, just perhaps, find an ally who could help bolster their dreams against the looming uncertainties. The next morning brought with it a crispness in the air, a promise of new beginnings. Sarah awoke with a fire in her belly. The weight of uncertainty was still there, but it felt different today. Each breath was infused with hope, and she knew she had to reach beyond her circle for help. At the diner, the clatter of dishes and the smell of pancakes filled the space with warmth. As she settled into her usual booth, she unfolded a piece of paper filled with jotted-down ideas and sketches for the festival. The coffee shop was more than just a gathering place, it was the heart of their town. "Do you have a plan, Miss Sarah?" overheard Susan, the waitress, her blonde curls bouncing as she approached. "You look like you mean business." "I'm trying to," Sarah replied, half smiling. "I think we need some extra help, maybe even from outside our group." Susan leaned in, curiosity dancing in her eyes. "You mean like the local artists? Or someone from the newspapers to cover it?" "Exactly. I want to reach out to more people, local artists, musicians, even journalists. We need their voices to amplify ours," she said, feeling an infectious enthusiasm swirling around them. As Susan refilled Sarah's coffee, the bell above the door chimed and in walked an older couple, both with paint-splattered shirts, their arms laden with canvases and brushes. Recognition flickered in Sarah's mind. Tom's parents. She exclaimed quietly to herself. Taking a deep breath, she stood and walked toward them, the hope fluttering in her chest. "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson. I heard you guys do amazing work. Any chance you'd be interested in collaborating for our community festival?" The Thompsons exchanged glances, their eyes alight with the spark of inspiration. "We'd love to help, Sarah," Mrs. Thompson said, her voice as vibrant as the colors on her shirt. "We could create a mural depicting the history of our town. Something that celebrates each story." Sarah felt a rush of joy flow through her. That would be fantastic. It would resonate with everyone. Visual art that truly represents our community. Minutes slipped by with the easy banter and brainstorming. The diner felt like a hive, buzzing with creativity. Ideas flowed freely, and before she knew it, Sarah had a growing list of community leaders and artists willing to pitch in. Yet, doubt still lingered like an unwanted guest. But as she watched the Thompsons' smiles spread across their faces, it was hard to ignore the growing belief that they could achieve something meaningful together. With every passing hour, her phone buzzed with messages from friends eager to take part. The energy felt almost electric, and Sarah couldn't help but marvel at how quickly it was all unfolding. Later, as the sun hung low in the sky, painting the diner in golden hues, Sarah found herself back at her booth. Her heart raced with thrilling anticipation. But a sudden thought pierced her excitement. A vision of Frank's black car loomed back into her mind. The thought of how he might respond when he saw their plans take flight sent a shiver down her spine. This wasn't just a festival, it was a stand against everything he represented. Would they be prepared for the battle ahead? Just as she contemplated this, her phone lit up with a message that took her breath away. We need to talk. I have some information about Frank, and it's not what you think. The weight of those words felt heavy in the air around her, mixing with the laughter of her friends, provoking a whirlwind of dread and anticipation. What could this mean for their plans? Sarah's heart raced as she prepared to respond. And in that moment, she realized tomorrow would bring more than just planning. It might lead them to truths that could change everything. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with strokes of orange and purple, Sarah's fingers trembled over her phone. Her heart raced, the gravity of that message pulling her focus in two directions, the festival that was blooming with possibility and the dark shadow that was Frank. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus on her next steps. Typing felt like a weighty task, but she couldn't shy away. What do you know? She sent back, her thumb hovering above the screen, wondering what kind of truth awaited her. Moments later, her phone buzzed again. Meet me at the cafe tomorrow morning. I'll explain everything. A wave of urgency washed over her. The cafe wasn't far, but something in the message felt like a trap. Would it really reveal secrets about Frank, or draw her deeper into his web? Pushing aside the nagging voice of fear, she tried to silence that doubt with the promise of the mural and the festival. The following morning brought with it a thick fog, enveloping the town. As Sarah stepped out of her house, the cool air swirled around her, echoing the conflict brewing in her mind. The festival could unite the town, but what if Frank was lurking around every corner, waiting to sabotage their hard work? At the cafe, the familiar shuffle of feet and soft chatter created a comforting backdrop. Yet, her mind was elsewhere, trapped somewhere between excitement and dread. She quickly scanned the room, her eyes landing on a figure hunched in the back corner. Alex, her friend, who had sent the message. Hey, she said, sliding into the seat across from him, her heart pounding in her chest. Thanks for coming. His voice was low, his gaze darting nervously around the cafe. You're in deeper than you realize. What do you mean? Sarah asked, leaning closer. Frank isn't just an obstacle, he said, glancing nervously out the window. He's got connections, powerful ones. The festival could put a target on your back. A chill ran down Sarah's spine. What kind of connections? Alex hesitated, a storm of thoughts raging in his eyes. I can't say for sure, but he's been making moves that could hurt the festival and anyone involved. Fear clawed at her guts. You have to tell me what you know. What has he done? Remember the paper rally he threw last year? It was staged. He's been controlling the narrative in town for a while now. Anyone who goes against him, it doesn't end well. His words hung in the air between them, thick and heavy. What do you propose we do? She asked, her voice trembling. We need to prepare. Have people ready to defend the festival and put the spotlight on what you're building, not what he's trying to tear down. As Sarah listened, determination began to bud in her chest. They had allies now, artists and community leaders. But would they rally without knowing the full extent of the threat? What if this backfires? She asked softly. What if we fail? Or what if we succeed? Alex stared straight into her eyes, igniting a spark. The town is waiting for someone to step up. It could be you, but only if you're willing to fight. His words fueled something deep inside her. She felt the fear begin to dissipate, replaced by a growing fire. The festival wasn't just an event, it was a chance for the town to take a stand against Frank's fearmongering. At that moment, she made a decision. Let us do it. We'll gather everyone together. We can't be afraid. This town deserves to rise up. But as determination took root, another thought pierced her resolve. Would Frank retaliate? And if so, how far would he go to protect his grip on the town? An unease settled into her heart as she prepared to leave the cafe. She glanced back at Alex. We need to keep each other in the loop. There's no way I'm doing this alone. Absolutely, he agreed, his expression mirroring her own resolve. But be careful, Sarah. He's more dangerous than you know. As they left the cafe, the fog began to clear. The air felt lighter, yet the weight of what lay ahead loomed large. Sarah could almost smell the change in the air, but with it came uncertainty. Eyes now sharper, Sarah looked out at the world. Little did she know, each step forward would push her closer to a confrontation she hadn't anticipated. And as the thoughts twisted in her mind, she realized it was just the beginning of a fight for what they believed in. What secrets lay hidden behind the quiet, settled surface of the town, and would they reveal themselves before it was too late? The sun peeked through the dissipating fog as Sarah and Alex stepped outside the cafe. The morning chill seeped into her bones, yet the warmth of resolve kept her moving forward. She had a mission now, a vision for the festival illuminated by the possibilities of community and hope. Okay, what's our first step? She asked, glancing around at the familiar streets, now tinged with a new sense of urgency. She knew they were in for a fight and wanted to ensure they had their foundation solid. We need to organize a meeting, Alex replied. Gather everyone involved in the festival. Artists, local businesses, everyone who believes in this project. We'll let them know what we're up against. Sarah nodded, her breath quickening at the thought of taking a firm stand. She could picture it now, a room filled with passionate voices, all of them committed to making the festival a success. The excitement of it bubbled up inside her. Let us do it. We can use social media to spread the word. Yes, and we'll need to create a plan for the day of the festival, Alex added. If Frank tries to sabotage us, we have to be ready. Her mind raced ahead. Maybe we can feature local musicians, have an art contest, and set up booths for vendors. Show the town that we're stronger together. As they walked, the vision began to crystallize. It felt invigorating, yet daunting. The magnitude of what they were about to do soaked in. She could feel the gravity of their choice weighing on her. But it was far too late for retreat now. Here, look. Alex pointed to a weathered poster stuck to a lamppost. It advertised the upcoming town hall meeting. Let us talk to them. They might have resources we can use. Perfect, Sarah replied, her heart pounding. We can start from there. They rounded the corner towards the town hall, her steps quickening with each passing moment. The streets were alive now, with the sound of children laughing and cars rolling by. It felt almost like a normal day, but she couldn't shake the ever-present reality of Frank lurking in the background. As they approached the building, she noticed a bunch of locals gathered outside, chatting animatedly. Taking a deep breath, she felt the ground beneath her shift slightly as if she were about to enter a battleground. Sarah. A familiar voice called out. It was Jenna, a talented painter and one of the driving forces behind the festival. What's happening? We haven't heard from you. Jenna. We need to talk, Sarah urged, pulling her friend to the side. There's something important we need to discuss. It's about Frank and the festival. Jenna's face tightened at the mention of his name. I figured it had to do with him. What's the plan? Sarah glanced back at Alex, who was scanning the crowd, gathering their allies warily. She felt a warmth in her chest. This was what she wanted, a community rallying together, a united front. We're organizing a meeting, Sarah replied, her voice steady. To discuss how to protect the festival and show Frank that he can't intimidate us. Count me in, Jenna said decisively. Let us reach out to more people. We can't let him ruin this for us. As they exchanged confident words, Sarah could see others leaning in, drawn by the whispers of rebellion in the air. The energy was palpable, electric. More voices joined theirs, and Sarah felt the swell of possibility. But amidst the growing excitement, Sarah's heart sank with realization. What had she invited into the fragile peace of their town? Would they be able to face the storm brewing on the horizon? A rallying voice is powerful, Alex murmured beside her, pulling her focus back. Just remember that it can also draw the wrong kind of attention. Frank's attention. Sarah felt a pulse of determination in her veins, but now accompanied by the dread of what would unfold. Would they stand strong together, or crumble under the pressure? With her heart pounding and anxiety twisting in her stomach, she realized that every action had consequences, and the stakes were higher than ever. As they started to formulate their plan, a feeling of urgency wrapped around her. What if it all went south? What lengths would Frank go to protect his hold? And was she ready to lead them into the storm? The answer was still looming, just beyond reach. The day of the festival broke with more warmth than Sarah expected, sunlight spilling over the diner that had become the heart of their community. But under that glowing surface, a tension buzzed, a reminder that Frank's shadow lingered, threatening their triumph. As preparations buzzed along Main Street, a sense of unity bloomed. Local musicians strummed their instruments, laughter echoed from the booths, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee swirled around, inviting everyone to share in the celebration of who they were. Yet, Sarah couldn't shake the lingering fear. What would Frank do today? The nervous energy mixed with excitement, creating a cocktail of hope and anxiety in her heart. Hours into the festival, as Sarah moved through the crowd, her heart swelled at every supportive exchange, every story shared. Jenna's mural grew vibrant beneath the warm sunlight, the colors echoing the tales of resilience woven through their town. It was a visual representation of everything they had worked for, an embodiment of dreams that reflected their struggle with spirit. Sarah! Jenna called, waving her over. Look at this. As they stood before the mural, the colorful brush strokes illustrated their story beautifully. The theme community versus corporate greed transformed into bold images, radiating authenticity and warmth. But as they admired the mural, the hairs on Sarah's neck stood up. She turned slowly to find Frank standing a few yards away, a calculating look fixed on the festivities. He watched with a smirk, a stark contrast to the laughter enveloping the festival. His sharp suit felt out of place among the vibrant clothes of her friends. Looks like you made quite a scene, Sarah, he called over, his voice dripping with casual disdain. Do you really think this little gathering will change anything? Look around, Frank, Sarah replied, a resolve hardening her voice. This isn't just a little gathering. This is our community showing what we value: togetherness, resilience, identity. He took a step closer, confidence radiating off him like heat. Cute. But if I wanted to, I could have this whole setup shut down in minutes. You're betting your future on a few heartfelt speeches and pretty pictures. Sarah met his gaze, strength coursing through her veins. You can try. But we won't go down quietly. We're fighting for each other here, and you can't extinguish that spirit. Amusing, he replied, tipping his head slightly, an unsettling smile dancing on his lips. He turned, his presence lingering like an unsolved riddle twisting in the soft air. As he walked away, Sarah felt a ripple of disbelief course through the crowd. Those who witnessed the confrontation exchanged nervous glances, but then Jenna stepped forward, defiance flaring in her eyes. We can't let him intimidate us. This mural proves we're not backing down. One by one, faces turned towards Sarah, their eyes held unwavering support. A silence thickened the air, but it was not the silence of fear, it was the calm before an awakening. What we're doing here, Sarah declared, is bigger than his influence. We're uniting, and that's where our strength lies. Right? Right. Came an enthusiastic chorus, voices echoing with purpose. A surge of exhilaration coursed through her like a jolt, lifting her heart higher. They were more than just a festival, they were a turning point. As the day unfolded, booths filled with laughter and storytelling, everyone yearning to share their connection stories of overcoming, of growth, and of love, all intertwined with the life of the town. They poured their hearts into the festival, the art, the culture, celebrating their identity as a community woven from threads more resilient than any corporation's agenda. But then, the scene shifted abruptly as a police officer approached with an expression that made Sarah's stomach drop. We have to shut this down, he said, his eyes apologetic. I've received word there's been a noise complaint. But Sarah's voice trembled, but she knew now was not the time to falter. We're within our rights. We aren't disturbing anyone, we celebrating our community. The officer hesitated, glancing back at his squad car parked by the street. In that moment, Sarah caught sight of Frank's figure in the distance, smirking as if orchestrating every move behind the curtain. "Then I suggest you head back to your roots, folks," the officer said reluctantly. "But you're on thin ice." The collective breath held by the crowd matched Sarah's pounding heart. She knew this was Frank's hand, but they couldn't let fear take over again. "We have the power, together," she shouted, not just to the officer but to everyone gathered. "This festival celebrates everything we stand for. We're fighting against oppression, for our stories to be told, and the townspeople shone to be silenced." A roar of support erupted, voices mingling with determination. The officer looked toward the gathering, as if sensing the tide turning. His shoulders dropped slightly. "All right, but keep it down," he conceded. "You have a couple of hours left." Cheering erupted like fireworks. People clapped and hugged one another, and Sarah felt the thrill of victory run through her. The festival was not just for a business, it was a testament to unity, history, and fervent passion. With renewed vigor, Sarah helped direct her friends to spread the word. They moved through the sea of people, the spirit of community lifting them, and slowly, even the skeptical faces began to soften. As evening approached, the sun dipped low, draping the town in hues of pink and orange. Musicians took to the stage, the comforting sound of guitars and drums melding with laughter. Sarah scanned the crowd filled with families, friends, and familiar faces all united. But just when the joy felt complete, a sudden crackle on the microphone jolted the crowd. "All right, listen up." Frank stepped onto the stage, his voice booming, slicing through the festive atmosphere. "This charade might be entertaining, but let us be honest, you're wading in a tide that's about to crush this little dream of yours." Anger surged through Sarah as whispers of uncertainty rippled through the crowd. She felt the need to push back to reclaim the spirit of their fight. She stepped forward, eyes fierce. "We are not backing down, Frank. Where you see a weak community, we see strength. We are not afraid of you." He surprised her by smiling, but it wasn't a friendly smile, it was the kind that manifested doubt. "Then here it is, folks. I challenge you. I'll offer free coffee and discounts for anyone who chooses my cafe over this festival of stories." As audible gasps filled the space, Sarah braced herself, every heartbeat bolstering her resolve. "Your money can't buy what we have," she yelled. "Our stories matter. Our community matters. And that's something money can't touch." A wave of applause erupted, amplifying her own heartbeat. Those gathered stood taller, parents scooped their children into their arms, eyes shining bright against the fading daylight. That was at the pivot from fear to collective determination. They were ready to fight, stand against intimidation, and claim their space. The evening's festivities grew, community members sharing not just their stories but taking to social media, spreading the word about the festival to neighboring towns. As laughter and music filled the air, Sarah looked towards the heavens, feeling the warmth of connection glow in her heart. The fight was just beginning, but it felt good more than good, it felt right. Silently, she vowed to keep their light shining brightly against impending shadows, fueling the spirit of defiance that surged within them. Together, they would rise, turning hope into a wellspring of strength that could withstand any storm. And right then, amidst the warmth of laughter and the solidarity of community wrapped around them, Sarah knew they would face whatever Frank could throw at them and emerge stronger than ever before. Each cup of coffee they shared, every story told, would forever bind them in an unyielding tapestry against the tides of fear. In that realization, she began to breathe easier again, surrounded by the people who believed in her dreams just as much as she did. Together, they would forge a future painted with the passions of their hearts, united as an unbreakable family forged over warm cups and powerful stories. And as the festival lights twinkled against the night sky, one thing became unmistakably clear: many cups might have brewed resilience, but it was love and courage fueling the boldest dream they dared to claim. And with that, Sarah felt a smile blossom, wide and full, as they stepped into the future together, ready for whatever awaited them. Now, dear friends, this is where we need you. You need to subscribe now. Don't risk missing out on our next incredible story. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Each story deserves your support. Comment below with your feelings and thoughts about this journey and how you would fight for your dreams. And share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. They shouldn't miss the power of community. This is the moment to show your support. Let us keep this incredible journey alive together.